Hello everyone, my name is Chelsea and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I have more emoji book recs. So I did an emoji book recommendation video last November and it seemed like people really enjoyed it. I had a fun time trying to figure out how to fit book recommendations to the emojis that you guys gave me, and so I knew I wanted to do it again. So I actually asked on Instagram for emojis that you guys wanted to see book recommendations for. I asked for at least 2 emojis in the sequence. You could do more than that if you wanted, and some people did, and I think I received like 16 responses to that question on Instagram. So I will have 16 recommendations to show you guys today. Some of these emojis, like as soon as I saw them, I knew exactly what I wanted to recommend, and then other ones took me forever to figure out, but I think I have actually hit the mark on pretty much all of these. I'll let you guys be the judge of that though, so like if you have a better book recommendation, or at least think you have a better book recommendation for some of these emojis, leave it down below, because I do have some, like I said, that I struggled on, and I will let you guys know which ones those are. But yeah, so we're gonna just go in order of like when I received them in, from like the first people that responded to the last people that responded. So the first response that I received was from Holly Reads. We had 3 emojis. One was a palm tree, one was a flamingo, and one was like a beach. So in my mind, the first thing I thought of was a book that could be like a beach read. However, I could not figure out for the life of me what is a good book for that I've actually read. So all of the books that I'm recommending today are books that I have read, that I've rated like 4 or 5 stars, things that I think people would enjoy. So besides like a cute beach read type of book, the book that I picked today is Our Bloody Pearl by D.N. Brin. So this does have like sandy beaches, we have pirates, we have sirens. It's not going to be like cute and fluffy. It definitely is a little bit darker. It is an indie published book by a non-binary author. We have tons of great rep in here and I just absolutely loved it. It is, like I said, going to be a little bit darker, but basically we follow a siren who had been previously captured by a ruthless pirate and gets rescued by somebody else who I think used to be a pirate, and it's them sort of creating a found family. But like I said, it does get very dark. This is the first sort of book in a series of companion novels that I desperately want to continue, but I just absolutely love this book, like 100%, 5 out of 5 stars. It was so good, and I feel like it sort of fits the emojis. The next response was from Darian Reads, and we have this dancing girl in the red dress and the crying emoji. So I personally have never used the dancing girl in a red dress emoji. I don't know if it's supposed to mean something. Like, this is one of the combinations that I struggled with so much because I didn't know what this meant. And I know I'm supposed to interpret it my way. So the first thing that came to mind when I was sitting and trying to figure out what I wanted to recommend for this is Where Dreams Descend by Janella Angelis, mostly because red is like the overall color scheme of this book. But Darian has already read this book. Darian has already loved this book. Like, I know it is one of her favorites. So I did not want to recommend a book that Darian has already read. So instead, I was looking at these emojis, and obviously the crying face, I feel like you want something that maybe is a little bit tragic, or it has some parts that are sad, some parts that are very like heartfelt, like you want those emotions. But this dancing girl, the next thing that I thought of was West Side Story. Like literally West Side Story, the dance, like when they do America. So I figured Romeo and Juliet retelling, cause like, why not? So I have These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. So this is a Romeo and Juliet retelling, the first in a duology. I have not read the second book yet, but it is set in 1920s Shanghai. Definitely has those Romeo and Juliet influences. It's not exactly the same, obviously, but there are definite characters, obviously the main characters, but also side characters that you can definitely pick out of the original Shakespeare Romeo and Juliet. And it also has like a monster roaming the city, so we have a little bit of like that magical sort of stuff in there as well. It is a very atmospheric book, and I will say it took me a little while to get into this one because it starts off very, very slow. but I really enjoyed the ending of it, and so I feel like I want to try the second book as well. But yeah, Romeo and Juliet retelling because I definitely was like, dancing girl in a red dress, West Side Story, Romeo and Juliet, I think it works. The next response I have here is from Danny Delgado, and she has 3 emojis. One is like the thinking face with the monocle. One looks to me either like a mansion or a bank because it has the gigantic clock on it. And then the third one is a top hat. So in my mind, the first thing that I went to was like a millionaire rich person romance or historical romance. I don't read much of either of those, so I struggled a little bit, even though I feel like the emojis were definitely asking for something specific, but I think I found something. I have A Princess in Theory by Alyssa Cole. So in general, I feel like this entire series could probably work. It's called the Reluctant Royals series, and so each book is a companion novel, but they have like a prince or a duke or something like that, and I feel like that sort of fits the whole like rich person type of thing. This first one here ends up having a sort of like mistaken identity type of thing with the prince because he's coming to the US to look for his princess who he like got betrothed to when they were like much younger, and she doesn't remember like any of this. And so it is a very fun romance. We definitely have those sort of like little tropes and hints of the more like rich and royalty type of stuff, and so I figured this series in general, but especially this first book, definitely fit. The next response was from Lana from Lore and Lullabies, and we have 2 emojis. One is like a mother and son, and the other one is a crystal ball. So in my mind, I was going for like family, younger kid with magic. And I know that she has a younger son, so I did want to go for a middle grade book that they could potentially read together, and so I went with Midnight for Charlie Bone by Jenny Nimmo. This is the first book in the Charlie Bone series, and one thing that I definitely remember about this series, even though it's been a while since I read it, it is a boy going to a magical boarding school. We definitely have him figuring out his powers, lots of magic, but I do believe he either lives with his mother or his aunt. So we do have also the fact that there is like a female person in his life that is taking care of him and him. So I figured the mother-son emoji could also be an aunt-nephew emoji because I can't fully remember what it is in here. But I do definitely remember reading these and loving these, and I was much older than a middle grade audience when I read them. But it is an entire series about Charlie Bone going to the school and trying to figure out magic, and it is just so much fun. The next response was from Olivia's Catastrophe. We have 3 emojis here. One is the crying emoji. One is this face that I like, in my heart, I just feel like it's like, aww. And then we have a broken heart. So this one, again, I had a couple different options I could go with, but I know Olivia Savannah is on this big kick of YA contemporary. So I ended up picking Eliza and Her Monsters by Francesca Zappia. This is an older YA contemporary that I know got a bunch of buzz like when it first came out. However, I absolutely loved it. 5 out of 5 stars. We definitely have the mix of emotions going through this one. Some parts are very happy. Some parts are a little bit heartbreaking and sad. We do have talk about mental health and talk about like potential suicide, attempting suicide, that kind of stuff. So it can be very hard in the topics, but ultimately it's about a girl who writes a webcomic and I believe a boy who's like one of her biggest fans, and them coming together and creating a friendship, and I think maybe a little bit of romance. I can't fully remember, it's been a little while, but I remember the emotions absolutely tearing into me and I loved it. And so I feel like this is one that Olivia Savannah should probably read. The next one we have here is from Remembered Reads. We have 2 emojis that, again, I was like, are you trying to trip me up on purpose? Maybe not. I feel like some people were trying to make it very interesting, which I had a ton of fun with, but the emojis we have are a crocodile and a rocket ship. And so for this one, again, crocodile, rocket ship, I definitely wanted to go sci-fi with this, and at first I was like, what am I going to do? And then I figured, I think I have like the perfect book, and it is going to be Strangelove by Anne Aguirre. So this is an indie published book by this author, although they do have traditionally published books as well, and it is a sci-fi romance. Our main alien love interest in this one, I do not think is exactly like a crocodile. I think they're technically supposed to be a little bit more bug-like. Not exactly, it's very hard to explain. However, there are a ton of species in this book and in the companion novels that come with it, and I do believe some of them are a little bit like more reptilian, and so I had to recommend this one. Again, I absolutely love this book. If you're a fan of Mass Effect in any way, I definitely think you should read this one. I've talked about it before, but it definitely feels like a Garrus Shepard romance together. We have a talking dog in this, like literally a talking dog. I find this book, one, super cute and romantic, but also hilarious. And basically, this is like The Bachelor meets the Hunger Games, because in this alien society, you have to go through certain trials in order to get approved to mate with somebody to have kids, and our alien ends up stealing a human from Earth, not realizing that they were on Earth. They thought it was a different planet, and they have to go through these trials, and along the way, they build a relationship, and yes, also a talking dog. Like, I just absolutely love this book and this series, and so I figured this is probably the closest I was gonna get to sci-fi with a reptilian crocodile. The next one we have here is from Ashwi, or Ashley. This is actually my sister's Instagram, and so we have two emojis. One is the one that, again, I feel like just says, "Aww," and then we have one that's like confusion. So I was like, okay, so we want something cute with either a plot twist or something that makes you go like, huh? What is going on? I had the hardest time with this one because of the fact that the things that I was thinking of constantly were more in the manga sphere, and that is something that I know for a fact my sister does not read. So if you're looking for manga and this was a recommendation that you think could be good, I would say Orange by Ichigo Takano, or even like The Promised Neverland by Kaiju Shirai. They give you both of those sort of like, type of feelings, but instead of that, I went with Late Bloomer by Fern Michaels. So this is a book I actually stole from our grandmother forever ago, like when I was in middle school or high school. I can't remember. And when I say stole, I mean I read it because I was allowed to read whatever I wanted, and then she let me keep it because I loved it so much. But this is like a romantic mystery, romantic thriller type of thing. You do find Fern Michaels in the romance section, but the romance in this book is not like the whole focus of it. Basically, we start off with our main character and a group of friends when they are very, very young, and I believe somebody in their friend group dies, and she ends up moving away. She has no memory of what actually happened, and when she is older, she comes back to town, and she is wanting to sort of figure out like what actually happened that day. So she is like trying to figure out the mystery of what happened when she was younger, but she also starts a romance with, I believe, one of the kids that she used to hang out with, who is now like the sheriff of the town. I have not read this one in a while. I definitely need to. I've reread it a few times. It is very, very old. I don't even know if you guys can like fully tell, but it's very yellowed. And yeah, this is just one of those books that I remember reading and really enjoying. And I know my sister likes romance and mystery thrillers. And so the fact that this does have a cute romance, but also has the mystery aspect, and I do feel like doesn't necessarily have a plot twist, but the reveal is very like interesting, I think this is perfect. The next response I got was from Rise Reading Corner, and she has two emojis. One is a ghost and one is a jack-o'-lantern. And so the ghost definitely made me think spooky, but the jack-o'-lantern made me think you want something a little bit more fun. So not like horror spooky, but maybe more like spoopy. So the book that I wanted to recommend is Spectre Inspectors by Bowen McCurdy. This is a graphic novel that I read last year. 5 out of 5 stars, absolutely loved. It is LGBTQ, and it also follows these college-aged kids as they're like doing a YouTube channel documentary sort of thing, going around and trying to like prove ghosts exist. It's sort of like a ghost hunt sort of thing. And in one of the towns they're in, it actually starts to happen. They had not seen ghosts previously, and now it's happening, and one of them gets possessed. And so this is a little bit spooky, a little bit spoopy, but it is also very cute and heartfelt. There's a little bit of romance in there as well. And so, yeah, I figured this was the perfect sort of like not horror, but spooky type of rec. The next response we have here is from A.M. Robert. They have two emojis. One is a snowflake and the other is sushi. So the first thing I thought of with this is Japan, because sushi is Japanese. Like literally the first thing, I could not find anything that also had snow. I don't think I have anything specifically that's like winter inspired that I know of. So what I ended up going with was Tokyo Ever After by Emiko Jean. This is a book that I read, I think, last year. Really enjoyed. The cover is a very nice light blue, so I figured that fit for the snowflake part. And it is following a Japanese American. I believe our author is also Japanese American, and so again, sushi fits perfectly. And this is basically The Princess Diaries, but in a Japanese setting. Our main character just figured out that her father is actually the Prince of Japan. So she's like a princess of Japan. She's, I think, in her like last year of high school, and I think during either summer or potentially winter vacation, because I can't remember the season, she ends up going there and trying to figure out how she fits into that side of her family, that side of her culture, being a Japanese American. Again, I absolutely love this one, and so while not exactly snowflake sushi, I do still think it fits. The next response I have here is from Wu. I don't know how to pronounce this, but this is from my friend Alex. So we're just gonna go with Alex. She has 4 emojis here. One is a face with a tear. One is a heart. One is like the embarrassment emoji, or at least that's what I'm taking it as. And one is sparkles. The first thing I thought of, like I didn't even have to like necessarily interpret the emojis. The first thing I thought of was Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. Partially probably because I got these emoji responses pretty soon after I marathoned the entire show and then marathoned the entire comic series, like literally like a day after each other. I did that. But I feel like these emojis fit this book series so well. It is just super cute and heartwarming, and the book series does get a little bit darker in some of the later volumes. We talk about mental health and eating disorders, but in general, like I could not put it down. I desperately just had to finish the whole thing. My heart loved it so much. I had put it off for a while because of all the hype surrounding it, but I just absolutely loved it. And so yeah, Heartstopper, a like high school romance, LGBTQ, like I just absolutely loved it. I feel like this fits. The next response that I received was from Who is Ren, and we actually had 5 emojis. So the first one we have here is the black fist, then we had a skull and a knife and the crystal ball and blood. So in general, for me, this definitely felt like something where we needed magic, potentially death, murder, blood magic even maybe, I don't know. I sort of was originally leaning toward Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas for this, but I recommended that in my last video for something, so I did not want to do that again. And the fist here, especially because it is a black fist, I wanted to focus more on a black author, so I picked Song of Blood and Stone by Elle Penelope. This is an adult fantasy series with some romance, so I do believe it is also usually billed as like fantasy romance. And we have magic. We have this big political war sort of going on, and I do feel like it mostly fits all of those emojis pretty darn well. This is another book that I absolutely loved, 5 out of 5 stars. And we have 2 warring nations. One is Lagrimar, who is basically populated by black people with Earth Song, with this magic, and then we have Elsira, who is basically populated by white people with red hair with no magic. And so we do also get like very good racial commentary as well, because of the fact that like that is strictly how this magic system works. And there is a magical mantle between these 2 warring kingdoms, and it is starting to crack. And that is not a good thing, because when this cracks, one of the kingdoms is planning on like rushing in and destroying the other one, and we have to follow Jasminda, who is sort of caught in between the 2. She is biracial, but she does look black with magic, and she is going to be helping one of the spies from Elsira to like stop this from happening. I absolutely loved the actual fantasy world building and the romance that we had in here, and so yes. Then the next response we had here I thought was very interesting. It's from Haha024, and it is the eye roll emoji and the poop emoji. So I figured this person's asking me for a book that I did not like, that I thought was crap sort of thing, which is very different than basically anybody else asking for stuff with these emojis. And for this one, I'm going with basically my stock response for the worst book I have ever read. It is Free Chocolate by Amber Royer. I absolutely love sci-fi, and this is a sci-fi that does not work for me or for quite a few other people that have read this one. It's supposed to be like a telenovela in space because we have a character who is bilingual, or English and Spanish, but then also alien languages and stuff. And the Spanish parts, you can sort of tell that Amber Royer is not a native Spanish speaker, because the parts where they're going back and forth between the English and the Spanish do not mesh well at all. Like, it is not a native Spanish type of thing. I have read other books that have done the bilingualism perfectly, and this one does not do that. Also, this is one of those books where the summary on the back of the book is not necessarily true to the book and takes forever to like get there. I think the whole summary on the back of the book is basically like, this woman is going to try to free the chocolate from the earth, because that is like the one export from Earth to other places in the galaxy that nobody else is allowed to have. Nobody is allowed to have chocolate. They have the only like way to give chocolate to other people. And then she gets captured and gets on a ship and they go do stuff. She doesn't get captured after trying to steal the chocolate and go on the ship until like 75% of the way into the book. It was very, very boring up until that part. There was also a lot of like weird writing choices. Like, one of the things was about her thinking about her décolletage. Actually, let me pull up the quote because I've definitely talked about this before. Okay, so this was something that I posted on Twitter forever ago, but I've also, I think, mentioned it in like one other video. This is a direct quote from the book, and one of the reasons why I hated reading it. So it says, "This white blouse is so low cut, it shows off a good bit of décolletage, and the word nut in my brain can't help but connect it by way of the Latin root word column for neck to decollate, an old-fashioned way to say behead." That's one sentence, and very unnecessary. The next response that we have here is from Ria Wambi. I'm really hoping I said that correctly. They have 3 emojis here. One is the double hearts, one is a ghost, and one is a spade, like if you're talking about playing cards. This is one that I struggled with for a little bit, because the hearts and the ghost make me think potentially like paranormal romance sort of thing, but then we have the spade. So what I eventually ended up picking was Signs of Cupidity by Raven Kennedy. So this is the first book in the Heart Hassle series. So I figured heart goes with spade, like playing cards, you know, I think that works. And basically this is an indie romance where our main character is a Cupid, and she accidentally ends up in this like fantasy world where she is basically invisible, like a ghost. And as the story progresses, she helps these men get off of their like prison island. They figure out that she's not actually a ghost. There is some romance that eventually carries throughout the next books in the series. This is one that I don't see very often at all, even though I am not on Book Talk, so like it could be over there, and I know they sometimes hype up a little bit more of like indie published, self-published romance stuff, but I don't feel like I've ever seen anybody actually read this one, and I really, really enjoyed it, and I do think it sort of fits those like paranormal romance, it's fantasy romance type of vibes, and so yeah. The next response we have here, I think I'm going to butcher this name again, and it's because it's a very, very unique name, but I think it's Enju's, Bujos, and Books. So Bujos and Books is obviously bullet journaling in books. But I'm so sorry if I mispronounced your name. But the emojis that they gave me were the thinking face with the monocle, the shocked face, and a mind-blowing emoji. So I figured you really want something that is going to be like shocking or plot twisty, or you have to use your brain to really figure out. And so for that one, I picked Paper Girls by Brian K. Vaughan and Cliff Chiang. So Brian K. Vaughan is the same author as Saga, which is a comic series that you do definitely see a lot on BookTube. Paper Girls is one that you don't see as often, but I read it and I absolutely love it. There are 6 volumes total, and this is a sci-fi time travel series, and let me tell you, this is one that I do feel like marathoning is probably a good idea, just because it is so wibbly wobbly timey wimey that like you have to read multiple volumes in the series to actually start to get full-on answers. I think the first 4 volumes are a little bit weird, and then you either start to get like concrete answers in volume 4 or volume 5, but I absolutely loved it, like 100%. Like, this is one of those series that when I finished volume 6, I wanted to reread it to see how everything actually connected again, because of the fact that like we are taking these like 4 girls from the 1980s, I'm pretty sure, and they get swept up in this like time travel thing and go to like the future, and stuff happens, and it's so weird, but so worth it, especially if you are wanting that sort of mind-blowing, what is going on type of feeling. And I think because especially it is time travel related, like they went there. They definitely went there. I had so much fun with this. I will say, because of the fact that the girls are in the 1980s, we do have a little bit of slurs being thrown around in the first 1 or 2 volumes, but character growth happens. They definitely stop that. We do have some LGBTQ characters in here as well, and yeah, I just absolutely love this series. Okay, the next person that responded was Miro de Morte, and they have 2 emojis. One, again, is the mind-blowing emoji, and one is a robot. So I definitely, again, was thinking sci-fi. The first thing I thought of was All Systems Red. However, I didn't think that was as like mind-blowing, so instead of traditional robots, I went with mechas. So I have Iron Widow by Shiran J. Zhao. This one I read was like, I think, my favorite book of last year. It is so good, so like genre bending as well. It is definitely sci-fi. We have the mechs that our characters actually have to go in and have to operate, and they end up using these mechs to like fight aliens basically, and this does have some romance in there. The ending, not even the ending, the last like 100 pages was non-stop action, go go go, what the fuck is going on. I absolutely loved it, could not put it down. Need the sequel, which is not coming out until like 2023. That's okay, but seriously, this book got a ton of hype when it was coming out. I think it was 100% well deserved. I loved this so much, because it is literally just like so different than a lot of books that you pick up and like you've been hearing about lately. And the fact that we have that sort of like last 100 pages of just like what you thought you knew is not what you actually know. It was so good. And then the last response I have here is from S Whitehead 27. This is another one that I struggled with, so just bear with me as I explain sort of what I did. We have 3 emojis here. The first one is the purple devil, and then we have hockey, and then we have a cow. A cow. So, the purple devil and the hockey emoji make me think that you want a hockey sports romance. The only one I have ever read is The Chase by Elle Kennedy. This is a spin-off series called Briar U from the Deal series, whatever one that is. And it is a like new adult romance. It has some hockey. But that stuff in general, I feel like is super hyped up. It's the only hockey romance I have ever read. So first of all, if you guys know hockey romance stuff, leave it down below. So in general, I then was thinking, what about a sports romance? The only real other sports romances I have read are by Mariana Zapata, who is the queen of slow burn romance. Absolutely love them, but that means the purple devil, in my opinion, doesn't necessarily fit as much, because in general, I feel like that is asking for more of like a sexy read. Again, I could be wrong. So far, I have not figured out how to put a cow in here at all. So what I eventually went with does not have sports in it like at all as far as I know, but the one I wanted to recommend is Pisces Hooks Taurus by Anita Sunday. Technically this is book 4 in her Signs of Love series, but you can read them as standalones. This is actually my favorite book of the series, and I figured Taurus works for the cow emoji. And this is a male-male romance. One thing I will say, and that I absolutely love about Anita Sunday, is that these are all male-male romances. However, she is very, very good about putting in different identities. So some of her books, even though they are male-male romances, have bi characters and demisexual characters, and like they are flat out like represented in the book. It's not something that you have to like read into, but this is my favorite one. It is about a character who is on the verge of being shipped out because he's on, I think, a student visa, and ends up starting a romance with somebody at his college. So it is going to be a new adult romance. I just absolutely loved it. It is a little bit of a slow burn, but there are some sexy scenes in case you're looking for that. And so yeah, this is the one that I think I had the hardest time with, just because I could not actually figure out a way to mesh all 3 emojis up at once. But again, if you guys have recs, leave them down below, because this is the one I struggled with. And so those are all the responses that I got. Again, I always have such a fun time trying to figure out recommendations for you guys with this. We'll probably do another one eventually. But yeah, thank you so much for giving me the emojis in the Instagram story. I had so much fun, and this is going to be it for this video. So if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up to let me know. Subscribe to this channel if you'd like to see more videos. I do have videos up Tuesdays and Thursdays, so I will see you then. Bye.